Shuji, I have the mic on for a second, so it doesn't. You can unmute yourself, and I'm going to turn this mic off so we don't have feedback.
Okay. Good morning. I'm not sure if I'm starting or not yet, but I'm starting. I want to thank everyone for coming today, either in person or via Zoom. I have no idea how many people are there today. I miss y'all in Grand Rapids. You're a great group of people. Even the people I don't know, I miss you. Here in Kansas, it's cool and sunny today. Smoky. People burn their fields. Just a second. People burn their fields, so we're a little smoky, but that's okay. I had a text and it wasn't, I thought it was from Shane, but it wasn't. Spring is just around the corner here. My daffodils are blooming, and everybody, happy Ramadan, happy Passover, and happy Palm Sunday. I have had the pleasure of spending a lot of time in monasteries, and I had a few amazing moments in those monasteries. Sometimes it'd be totally unexpected. I'd be walking through the forest, because it was in a forest, and all of a sudden, bam, something would hit me. And other times, much more predictable, I'd be in a ritual and we'd be chanting something. It was just like, oh, when you have 50 monks chanting and incense and gongs and bells, it can be very emotional. And that's where one would, okay. I can't do two things at once, and that's okay. And that's where one would expect to be impressed, would be at these beautiful rituals. But I've not been spending much time at monasteries the last few years. Living in Michigan, it was a long ways to get to Ramonji, my home monastery in Iowa. And then lockdown happened, so I couldn't go to Shasta Abbey and I couldn't go to Iowa. So Nonan, my first teacher, Nonan, always said, practicing monastic practice so easy, because if you don't go to make it to morning zazen, somebody will come, knock on your door and say, Shuji, why aren't you here? And unless you were sick, you were told to get up to the zendo right now and go sit. And having external this is why I write out my thing so I can think of all these words. Having external controls makes it so much easier to follow your practice, and we all know that. Anyway, so today I'm going to talk, how can we bring a little bit of that monastic practice, our practice, home with us? And so much of my time living at monasteries revolved around food. Either being the head cook or a kitchen monk, or just taking formal meals, or meals with the Sangha. My son read a book once about a man who spent a year in a Japanese monastery. My son came and said, Mom, are monks really that obsessed about food? And I say, yes, the memoir was right, because there's not a lot else to be obsessed about besides food when you're at a monastery. So whether eating or cooking, food and monastics are very important. Just like food in our daily lives are very important. A lot of Zen stories revolve around food, being around rice or rice bowls, and you can all think about the parable of rice cake. It's like eating a rice cake. eating a picture of a rice cake, or the monk turning over their begging bowls. A lot of koans revolve around food. At Shasta Abbey, I spent about a year being a kitchen monk. And there are usually 5 or 6 monks in the kitchen, and every head cook I worked with holds a really special place in my heart. All my fellow kitchen monks, I feel we are so close. Spending time in the kitchen is such a bonding experience. If you think about that in your daily life, you cook with your partner, you cook with your kids, that's a special time. We can all think of cooking with our moms, cooking with our grandmas, eating with our grandparents, special times. At the monastery, at times we'd be caught up, and at 11 o'clock, right before our lunch at noon would happen, we'd have a little bit of time, we'd sit and talk for 5 or 10 minutes, have a tea, a cookie, or a snack. And just those 10-minute talking, those are some of the best times I spent in the kitchen, just to sit and chat before we served lunch. And then also coming to the kitchen first thing in the morning, I'd build a fire in the boiler, and that would bring us hot water, chopping wood, carrying wood, building the fire, knowing that that was an important part of feeding our community. One Tenzo, that's our head cook, said at one of our teas, how much responsibility it is to be in charge of feeding the monks and visitors. What's the responsibility for feeding our families? What's the responsibility for feeding ourselves in a way that's healthy and keeps everybody happy? And also not to waste food. It was always sad to discover a box of red peppers in the walk-in cooler that's gone bad. That's what we always call them. Oh, what's about to go bad? And have to take it out to the compost. But there's also an idea that, and I try to keep that idea, putting something in compost is not throwing it away. You're just feeding multitudes of beings and feeding future foods. I'm about ready to take my compost and put it on my garden. I'll do that in the next couple of days. And next fall, or this is a different growing season, midsummer, I will have potatoes and sweet potatoes, squash, peppers from my compost. It's not saying I should be lackadaisical with my food, but compost is not throwing stuff away. It's changing our food. One day, after a very special meal, people were going, oh, thank you, kitchen, thank you, kitchen. And the abbot, who does a lot at the monastery, but is very seldom in the kitchen, stood up and said, we always thank the kitchen monks for a wonderful dessert, but very seldom do we thank the treasurer for balancing the books. And today, we see how important the tech team is. Thank you, tech team, for coming up with a solution. No matter how important it is, cooking and feeding the monks, it's also just another job. But today I'm going to talk about eating and taking our practice of eating into our day-to-day lives. We have bowls. This is how they're handed to us. We can open them easily and take up our stuff. And this is our tablecloth. And these are our bowls, all nested together, 5 little bowls. We eat out of these, we care for these. The bowls themselves are important. Little thing of utensils here. Being Japanese, we have our set soup. This is what we clean the bowls with. Chopsticks and a spoon. We're responsible for these. We eat with these 3 times a day. We clean them ourselves. So if we don't clean our bowls, our next meal, we eat out of dirty bowls. The bowls are very important. When we're ordained, we get our own set of bowls from our teacher. As you can see, these are absolutely beautiful. I care for these as I care for any, I want to say sacred. Sacred isn't quite the word, but they're supposed to be kept on my altar. My altar is a little small, so they're kept elsewhere. But anyway, bowls. These are our bowls. We eat out of these bowls. We care for them. When we eat, we chant. We open our bowls all together. We set out our bowls all together. We are served together, and all the time we're chanting. Then we eat together. We clean our bowls together. We put our bowls up. We tie them up the way they were originally. We set them back where we keep our bowls. All together, all very mindful. I know a few of you have eaten oryoki, and I've seen the Grand Rapids Temple style of formal meals. It also is very stylized. The main thing is quiet, and we do it together. Very intimate way of eating. It was very hard for me when I started. It's very hard for everybody when they're starting, because you want to do things right. But the main thing is pay attention. And after a 3-day shishin, I'd be so hungry. The first thing I'd do when I left the temple is go grab something to eat so I could drive home. But I remember once Duke Wan, the head teacher of Grand Rapids, when I went there, said, there's more important things in Zen than how to fold a napkin correctly. And it's like, yes, there is. But also it's important to fold your napkin correctly. It's important when you hold up your bowls to hold them with respect. And when people fill them up, you say, stop, enough. If you're not paying attention, going, da, 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 you have this huge pile of oatmeal and you eat everything in your bowl. If you see it's something that you don't want or don't like, you go little bit. Don't pay attention like, oh man, I have a huge bowl of soup with green peppers and I hate green peppers. Pay attention. As my first teacher always said, and anybody who's listened to me before, pay attention, your life depends on it. Pay attention, your eating depends on it. And in our first temple, we passed the bowls. If you didn't pay attention, the dogs under the table would have had quite a few nice bowls of granola. On the floor it goes. Pay attention or you drop your chopsticks. And in a very quiet zendo is very loud. And everybody looks, who dropped their chopsticks? You go, oh man, what do I do now? Pay attention. That's a whole idea of monastic eating. How do I take that in my day-to-day life? It's the little things that make up this practice of paying attention while you're eating. So much is more than eating. Scrape your bowls before you throw them in the dishwasher. Don't throw out, clean your plates. And I realize that's such a childish thing to say. But don't put 2 cups of rice in your bowl if you're not going to eat that much. Pay attention. How hungry am I? Eat it. And what you don't eat, don't throw it down the garbage disposal. What you can't eat, put in compost. Dogen has a saying, and I love this: treat each grain of rice as an eyeball. What does that do to your eating? One of my teachers I like has a book on eating disorders, and it's called Mindful Eating. If you're mindful when you eat and can take this pay attention, your life depends on it, to everything you put in your bowl, how will that change your eating? Mindful eating is one way to bring our practice home. And if we're not going to bring our practice home, why are we here on Sunday mornings? Yeah, I talk a lot about bringing our practice into day-to-day life. Why do we meditate if the first thing we're going to do is get in the car and some car cuts us off? We go, wow, 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 and have a road rage. It's like, whoosh. Let's bring Zazen. Let's bring our meditation into driving. Let's bring our meditation into eating. That doesn't mean, as some people do, take our spoon and take a bite and go, oh, I'm eating for Santori. Oh, I'm eating with all beings. It doesn't mean you have to chew each bite 50 chews, as some practices do. It means just take a bite and appreciate it. I always thought my mom would have loved this way of eating when we were kids. Each person takes responsible for their bowl, and we clean up after eating, wrap it up, and put it on the table, and that's where we'll come next time. It's very efficient and very tidy, which is why you can feed 50 monks in a monastery quickly with this. But we can take it home with us. One of my favorite authors, my bookshelf's over here, and I always look over at my bookshelf. Shohaka Akamori has a book called Living by Vow. He talks a lot about our meal chants and talks a lot about Dogen, what they said about food. But the one thing he said was, just let Dharma be the food and food be the Dharma. What is this like? If everything in this bowl is Dharma, and Dharma is what we put on our plates every meal, suddenly the eggs I eat for breakfast are very different. Somebody gave us some duck eggs, a dozen of duck eggs, a barter for some sewing I'm doing. And I text Hung Su. I said, Hung Su, I have duck eggs, and I want to make them to be perfect. And then he sent a few suggestions, and I thought, ooh, that is not a mindful way of eating. No matter what I do with these duck eggs, they're going to be perfect. The greediness of, I want my duck eggs to be perfect. There's a little bit of greed. There's a little delusion. This could be anger if they're not. I put those 3 poisons right in that little text to Hung Su. And being a good teacher, he just said, well, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. No matter what you do, they're going to be good. It's like, yeah, that's a good teacher. He did not feed into my greed about wanting my duck eggs to be perfect. Thank you, Hung Su. Everything's Dharma. How we eat, what we eat, food is Dharma. My duck eggs are Dharma, no matter what I do with them. Even if I drop the whole dozen on the floor and Harry and Layla come and eat some duck eggs, it's still Dharma. So, what is gained by this style of eating? Chanting is very important before our meals. One of the things I like, one of the lines I like, innumerable labors has brought us this food. We should know how it comes to us. This is very important today because we have choices. Well, most of us have choice. How we find our food, what we eat, we have choices. How can we make our food Dharma? We have a choice. Most of us have a choice on what we eat. And we are so lucky to have that choice. Don't squander that choice. Then one of the next lines is, receiving this offering, we should consider whether our virtue and practice deserve it. And then we say the last line, to attain the Buddha way, we take this food. Every time I read that, I think, oh, my virtue and practice does not deserve this food. And I have to be real careful not to get myself all tangled up in that line. And be sure, oops, there went my spoon. Can't eat. I dropped both my chopsticks and my spoon. Does my virtue and practice deserve this? The next line, to attain the Buddha way, we take this food. Isn't that why we eat? So we can live. And if we're not living to my favorite things is a third pure precept. We live to benefit all beings, to attain the Buddha way. That's why we eat. Eating as a whole, in so many ways, are a spiritual practice. In my German Lutheran childhood, we always said grace before meals. Stop, take a breath. Get us here so we're not bringing all the blah, 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 blah into our meal. And years ago, I read that people that stand up at the counter and eat breakfast have a higher rate of heart attacks. No idea there's any truth to that. And that was way before we could drive through McDonald's and get our egg sandwich and eat in the car on our way to work. But hearing that, probably in my early 20s, I thought, yes, eating should be special. Family dinner has always been special for me. Time to communicate, time to talk. No phones, even back in the olden days, the phone rings. I don't care, don't have an answer machine. I'm not going to answer the phone during dinner. No screens. I've kind of been dropping that a little bit. Joy of eating together. And this food of spiritual practice is so common. Ramadan, it's happening now. My Facebook feed is overflowing with wonderful Ramadan recipes. The evening feast for the final feast, food. My son lived in Turkey for a while, about 18 months. And while he was there, a lot of his coworkers would invite him to Ramadan meals, usually Friday night meals, and then a couple end of Ramadan feasts. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of it and I didn't look it up. He still talks about those wonderful Ramadan meals. I worked with a woman who celebrated Ramadan. She came into work once really excited one year because her preteen son had decided to celebrate Ramadan. And she said, my boy's a man now, because he thought he was old enough to take part in the special food as spiritual practice. Ramadan has a lot more to do than just food, the 5 principles of Ramadan. Many people are much more qualified to speak of that, and I'm not going to speak about it, but we do see that food is important for Ramadan. Passover, which is also coming soon. Another holiday that food is its major component, one of its major components. Again, I'm not an expert on Passover, so I'm not going to talk about it. A friend of mine invited me to her Seder once. Each food, she said a prayer and explained why and how we ate this. Food as spiritual practice. That night, millions of people were sitting together and eating the same food at the same time. Something really connecting and intimate about that. Easter, another holiday, just around the food. When you see Easter, what's the first thing you think of? Boiled eggs and chocolate. Again, Easter is a lot more than boiled eggs and chocolate. My mom always had ham for Easter. Think about the only time of year she went and bought a ham. Always Easter was a time for family meals. Food as spiritual bonding, food as friendship, food as our practice. Going back to Oryoki. Again, we are eating together, friends, Sangha members, Like family, we're not jabbering, we don't get up, we wait until everyone's finished. Part of that ritual is so we can feed 50 people at once. It also takes concentration. We have to be mindful. We have to be just aware of what we're doing. I don't eat Oreo style at home. I don't keep my bowls on the table. But at Shasta Abbey, every time we'd eat anything, even a little snack, we'd put it to our foreheads and say, Homage to Buddha, homage to Sangha, Dharma, homage to Sangha. Homage to Buddha, homage to Dharma, homage to Sangha. Everything we ate, just to bring us home. Just say, I'm about ready to put something in my mouth. How did this piece of candy get to me? For my Milgata, the thing I like best is we eat to end all evil, we eat to practice good, we eat to save all beings and to embody the Buddha way. Then I lean over, look at my food, and inhale deeply. And if you see me eat, you'll see that I lean over my food and inhale. And it's just gotten to be a habit now. And at that time, I thank all beings for being part of my practice. If I'm eating meat, I thank that chicken. Eating vegetables, I thank the carrot, the compost, the earth. Thank all beings for allowing me to eat and keep my life going. That is not the gata, the Milgata that my tradition is supposed to say, but that's the one that works for me. And no matter what you do or how you eat, take a moment and say something. You can look up and see what your tradition is supposed to say. You can go back to your childhood. The Come Lord Jesus, be our guest, let his food be blessed. That's something. If you need to change it, Come Lord be Buddha. Come Buddha, be our guest, let his food be blessed. Whatever you want to say. Do something to stop the world and bring you to your food. Bringing our practice into day-to-day life. We're about ready to meditate. Bringing our meditation into our food. I don't know if you're going to go down and have tea and cookies, but as soon as you walk down those steps at the temple, it doesn't mean that you're no longer practicing your practice. Bring your Zazen mind, bring your little, even if you've never done monastic practice, bring that little bit of monastic practice into how you eat. And on occasion, you can find formal Buddhist meal chants all over the internet. Go ahead and do the whole meal chants, just to see what it's like when you eat. Good practice. And whatever you do, pay attention. When you're eating, when you're snacking, to the people you're with. Pay attention, your life depends on it, and enjoy every bite. Thank you. 80 questions. I'm supposed to mute myself, so.
I don't know if we can have any questions with, I'm gonna have to.
You can type them in the thing.
Is there any questions? Can you? Okay. But if you want to be, sorry guys. So everyone on Zoom can still hear us. We're about to begin meditation. I wanted to share a meal gatha that I recite before we start. This food is the gift of the whole universe, the earth, the sky, and much hard work. May we eat in mindfulness so as to be worthy to receive it. May we only accept foods that nourish us and prevent illness. May this food help us on the path of understanding and love.
That's very nice. Thank you for sharing, Shane.
Prepare yourselves for meditation. Shuji, if you want to get off the screen, you can sit. Thank you, everyone, and everyone on Zoom for putting up with our technical difficulties. I hope everyone in the back could hear all right. We have a few announcements. Dharma Discussion Group is every Thursday from 9:35 until 11. The 10 o'clock is when we start the discussion. The Radical Dharma Book Club is the first Wednesday of each month. We've already had it for this month, but we'll have it again in May, the first Wednesday of May. The Virtual Death Cafe is this Wednesday. It's Tanjin Su, Reverend Tanjin Su will be facilitating that for Zoom, and we'll have the link on our website and everything and more details with that. And then Lojong is going to be this Saturday at 6:30. And so that's going to be in person. Everyone's invited. And Sunday, April 24th, we're having volunteer to greet guests. So we need to get a few more greeters here. If you feel comfortable doing that, you can come in early at 9 a.m. on April the 24th. That's a Sunday. And so we can have a few more greeters. And then also the same Sunday to volunteer if you're interested in lighting the incense and helping light the candles for the altar. And the fourth Sunday of each month that we have our board directors meeting. It'll be the 24th this Sunday, or not this Sunday, the 24th this month. And then last but not least, the Buddhist based recovery meetings. We have a number of meetings, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and you can get more information on the web or you can ask myself. And yes, it's training for the lighting incense and greeting, just so we can have more greeters and more people to light the incense. Do I have? Oh, Lojong is a mind training compassion. It's a Tibetan practice that we've been doing here since I think the inception of the temple. It's on the full moon night. We just do it's an introspective contemplation meditation. It's very powerful meditation. Thank you. Any other announcements? Oh, for Zoom, we need it. Sorry.
Thank you. Good morning. This temple is supported solely by your generous donations. The donations cover rent and lights and such. There's not one person at the temple that receives any financial compensation for a service they provide. If you'd like to support the temple, you can do so by going to our website, zengr.org, and click the donate button. If you're watching on YouTube, there should be a donate button at the bottom of the page. We have 2 Dana boxes at both entrances where you can leave a donation. And lastly, we have a small boutique downstairs. If you need any items for your practice, you could purchase some of those there. Thank you.
All right, if we could all stand, and we'll finish with our final gathas on page number 9, if I'm not mistaken. For all unskillful actions ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, more of my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. If we could have we'll have 16 cushions out, 4 on this side, 4 on that, or 8, I'm sorry. Yeah, 16 altogether. And the rest can go in the back room over here. And thank you for coming. And feel free to come downstairs and socialize or do whatever you'd like to do. Have a wonderful morning. Thank you. And anyone on Zoom, if you want to stay and chat with Shuji or anyone else, I'm sure we can have that be open. I'm turning off the mic now.
Anybody want to say anything or anything?
Shuji. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Hi, this is Kunga.
Yes.
Thanks for the talk. I thought it was great. When I give my talk on the 24th, I'll be talking a little bit more detail about using our food as a meditation in relationship to Earth Day. So that's a nice tie-in.
That'll be great. I had to work really hard, to keep it down. And when I practiced it, it was 10 minutes. I thought, okay, or 12 minutes, I can do a little bit of adding on, and I went way over. I had to work really hard to keep the politics of food out of it. I did not want to go into mass productions of chickens and I grew up on a farm where we had personal relationships with the animals we ate. And that changes how you feel about your pork chop when you named your pig. And Pamela just can't believe that we as kids ate food that we named. But it's like,
when I was a kid, my grandmother had a farm in Ohio and we lived in Virginia. So for 2 weeks in the summer, my dad would always take me and my sister out there and leave us there on the farm. And we lived in the city in Virginia. And I was used to, eating city food like McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. So my grandma lived in this little town. They didn't have a Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I said, I want to have fried chicken for dinner. She always asked us what we want for dinner. I said, I want fried chicken. So she went out in the farmyard because she had a farm. She had about 80 acres, I guess. And there were chickens running around. So she just grabbed one up and lopped the head off of it. And, carried it across the yard, and the blood was spurting out.